Hey everyone, and welcome. Today we'll be talking about the film Five Nights at Freddy's. Fun fact, Five Nights at Freddy's is based off of a video game which has 9 games in the series with additional spin-offs, a novel series, and an anthology series. This movie came out in 2023 and stars Josh Hutcherson, Elizabeth Loyal, and Piper Rubio, and was directed by Tammi. So, without further ado, let's get right into it. Five Nights at Freddy's follows Mike Schmidt, who starts a new job as a security guard at an old abandoned family diner known as Freddy Fazbear's Pizza to be able to provide for his little sister. Mike's brother was kidnapped years before, and while he is at Freddy's, he has more vivid dreams of the day that happened and is visited by some ghosts as well. Mike soon learns that Freddy isn't all that it seems to be when the animatronics come to life. Five Nights at Freddy's is a supernatural horror film. It has similar vibes to The Black Phone, Annabelle, or Chucky. Five Nights at Freddy's seemed like an interesting movie, and to be honest, I didn't do much research going into the film and didn't know that it was a whole franchise with some die-hard fans until I was at the theaters. There is a whole bunch of Easter eggs throughout the film that tie this film back to the video games, and I didn't catch most of them because I didn't play the games, but the people in my movie were losing their minds whenever something that referenced the games came up. Even if you didn't play the games, you would still be able to follow along with the story and understand what is happening. One thing I must say is that Freddy's really reminded me of a Chuck E. Cheese. Josh Hutcherson did a good job of portraying this guy who is stuck in the past but trying to keep it together in the present. He is hanging on a thread by trying to keep his sister away from his aunt and trying to keep his job so he can provide for his little sister. At the end of the film, I felt like he got partial closure about the death of his brother because we know who killed him and who kidnapped him, but we don't know where the body is, and the movie didn't answer why wasn't his brother a ghost like the other kids. Also, every time there is a kid in a horror film, I just know they're going to do something dumb in which the main character will have to save them. Everything was going downhill, but to make it worse, the sister decided to go to Freddy's after her brother said no, and then we see the aunt who was babysitting was laid out on the floor. Luckily, she knows how to communicate with the animatronics, so in the end, she kind of makes up for her not following instructions, but I was a little bit upset that she was in that situation to begin with. Speaking of the aunt, they really don't even try to finish her storyline. Like, is she dead or is she just knocked out? But also, is no one going to ask the question about the people she hired to trash the place? Because they will now technically be missing, even though we know that they're dead. I feel like that was a big plot point that was kind of glossed over that should have been focused on a little bit more, considering the custody battle was a big part of the plot in this movie. I love seeing Matthew Lillard in this horror role as Steve, aka William Afton, who we come to find out is the serial killer who not only killed the kids at Freddy's but also killed Mike's brother. In the beginning of the film, he is a career counselor going by Steve, and he is one of the people that influences Mike to get the job at Freddy's. And by the way that he acted when he realized what Mike's name, we knew that there was something up with him, and we knew that there was something that he knew going into this, and that he probably set up the whole thing. I think that scene kind of laid out for me how the film was going to go, because in that moment I knew that he was the one that kidnapped Mike's brother and had something to do with all of the dead kids, because there was no way that he was aware of this place and what has happened in this place in the past and was encouraging someone else to work there. I wish they were able to hide, his involvement a little bit more, from him being the killer at the end so that it was like a bigger surprise. I did love, though, how the spring mechanisms that they talked about earlier in the film in his suit ended up being his downfall. The plot of this movie was super predictable, which made some of the big surprises fall a little flat for me, but I was also happy that I was able to guess them right. Like I said, I knew that William or Steve was going to be the Yellow Rabbit, but also had a feeling that Vanessa knew something the moment she stepped on screen, because it just seemed a little weird to me that a police officer would be at a random little shutdown diner, spending her whole entire shift hanging out with a security guard that she just met, and I just knew that there was something that she knew about these kids and what happened in this diner. Also, the moment that they showed how the spring-loaded mechanism in the suits worked, I knew that that is where the missing kids were, and I knew that later on in the movie that this would come back to eventually hurt someone, which it did because it ends up hurting William when he is trying to go after Mike and his little sister. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza was a great location to further bring on the spooky vibes in this movie. Like, you could clearly tell just by looking at this place that there was going to be some creepy stuff that was going to happen to Mike. The animatronic mascots made it even creepier, even before knowing that they were being controlled by ghosts. I do think that this whole idea of this type of horror film is really refreshing, and even though it's not the best execution, they did a good job with the setting up of different things and adding in more things that would make it creepy. Also, the little balloon boy toy that kept popping up was scary and weird, and I kind of want to know if it's tied to the ghost kids or what is it tied to, and what's the reason that it just literally just keeps popping up at random places. I think my favorite part of Five Nights at Freddy's is when the people came to trash the place and then they get picked off one by these animatronics. I just thought it was funny that they thought that they were going to just go in and everything was going to be easy, but the animatronics, or the ghost kids, were like, well, you guys won't be leaving here. I didn't really care for any of those characters, so having them, being put out of the picture really didn't bother me. Five Nights at Freddy's is not a perfect movie, but it is a fun one. It has a couple of plot holes as well as the story being a little too predictable, but I think that the idea of this is really cool, and I really enjoyed the cast. Thank you for watching my video. I would love to hear your thoughts down below in the comments. If you haven't subscribed, please do so you can keep up to date with more of my videos. But besides that, everyone stay safe, have fun, and goodbye.